Remember your very first car? Mine was a rusty old mess, but what it taught me about life will surprise you. This isn't just a story about a car. It's about growing up, facing struggles, and finding freedom. Come with me on this unforgettable journey. I still remember the exact moment I saw it for the first time. An old, rusty relic sitting in the corner of a dusty lot, forgotten by everyone but me. Most people would have walked right past it, their eyes sliding over the chipped paint, the dented hood, and the spiderweb of cracks on the windshield. But something about that car called to me. It wasn't shiny, it wasn't fast, and it certainly wasn't pretty, but it was mine. And that made it priceless. It all started with a dream, as most good stories do. The dream of freedom, of hitting the open road with nothing but the hum of the engine and endless possibilities ahead. Back then, I was broke. I barely had enough for lunch money most days. And yet there it was, a beat-up old car selling for less than the price of a gaming console. The price tag said $500. $500. A fortune to me at the time, but cheaper than any other ride I had seen. No one else believed it was worth a dime. Friends laughed, saying I just bought myself a broken heap of metal. Why not save for something better, they'd ask. But better wasn't what I wanted. I wanted this, a chance to prove I could take something abandoned and breathe new life into it. To turn rust into roar. I had no idea how to fix a car back then. The only thing I knew was that I loved it. I spent weeks reading forums, watching YouTube videos, and scavenging local junkyards for spare parts. Every night I'd crawl under the hood, fingers greasy and trembling, trying to figure out what went wrong and how to fix it. My first big challenge? The engine wouldn't even start. Every time I turned the key, there was just a faint click, the sound of disappointment echoing in my chest. But I refused to give up. I learned about spark plugs, fuel lines, and carburetors. I replaced the battery with one I bought secondhand. I cleaned the filters and changed the oil myself. The process was slow, painful, and often humiliating. I made mistakes, broke parts, and sometimes even set off the car alarm accidentally. But little by little, piece by piece, the car started to come alive. And then, one cool evening, I turned the key, and the engine roared. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't smooth, but it was alive. The sound was music to my ears, the soundtrack of a victory hard-earned. I had done it. That car wasn't just a machine. It was my first taste of independence, my first lesson in perseverance. It taught me more about patience and determination than any school ever could. It was ugly and noisy and temperamental, but it was mine. And as I gripped that steering wheel for the very first time, heart pounding, I knew this was only the beginning of a much bigger journey. That first moment when the engine roared to life was unforgettable, but the real journey began the instant I took that creaky, patchwork car out onto the road. I was terrified, exhilarated, and utterly unprepared all at once. I had never driven before. Not really. Sure, I had ridden in cars, watched movies where drivers pulled off daring maneuvers, but nothing could prepare me for the feeling of sitting behind the wheel, controlling a machine that could either take me anywhere or kill me if I wasn't careful. The car's interior smelled like old leather mixed with decades of dust and memories. The seats creaked beneath me, and the gear shift felt foreign in my hands. It wasn't a smooth ride by any means. The clutch was stiff, the brakes were inconsistent, and the steering had a mind of its own, sometimes twitchy, sometimes sluggish. Driving that car was like wrestling a wild animal. It demanded respect, patience, and constant attention. My first attempts at driving were far from glamorous. The car stalled repeatedly at stop signs, sputtered when I tried to accelerate, and coughed up clouds of black smoke that sent pedestrians scurrying away in confusion. Every drive was a test of nerves. I remember the horror the first time I stalled in the middle of a busy intersection. The blaring horns, the impatient shouts from other drivers, and my own pounding heart made it feel like the world was collapsing on me. I could barely get the engine started again, hands shaking, sweat dripping down my forehead. But each challenge was a lesson. Slowly, I learned how to feel the car, when to shift gears smoothly, how to ease the clutch without stalling, how to anticipate the engine's mood swings. The fear gradually gave way to confidence. I discovered that driving wasn't just about mechanics. It was about connection. The way the car responded to my touch, the subtle vibrations in the pedals, the rhythm of the engine, all these became a kind of language between us. Every weekend, I took the car out for longer drives, exploring back roads and forgotten lanes, places where I could practice without the pressure of traffic or judgment. Those solitary drives were my therapy, moments when I felt free and unburdened. The hum of the engine drowned out the noise of the world, and the open road stretched out before me like an endless promise. But the car's quirks never disappeared. There were nights when I'd be stranded on the side of the road, the engine refusing to turn over no matter how many times I tried. I learned how to troubleshoot problems on the spot, checking the fuel line, tapping the starter, jiggling wires under the hood. Sometimes I'd call my friends for help, but often I was alone with nothing but a flashlight and a stubborn machine that refused to cooperate. Those breakdowns tested my patience and resilience. I learned that ownership wasn't just about freedom, it was about responsibility. That car was a commitment, a challenge I had willingly accepted. Fixing it became a ritual, a way to prove to myself that I could handle whatever life threw my way. There were moments of pure joy too, like the day I took the car out to a small hill just outside town and managed to drive it all the way up without stalling. The sense of achievement was overwhelming. I laughed out loud, feeling like I had conquered the world, even if it was just a patch of asphalt and some rusty metal. Driving that car also brought me closer to people I never expected. Strangers offered advice or spare parts. A local mechanic, seeing my determination, lent me tools and shared stories of his own battered rides. Friends who once doubted me started to cheer me on, impressed by how far I'd come. The car became more than just a vehicle. It became a bridge to a community. But with all the highs came the lows. The car's old engine was a constant drain on my wallet and energy. Every week brought new repairs, sometimes simple fixes like replacing a light bulb or patching a tire, other times major overhauls like swapping out the radiator or repairing the transmission. Money was tight, so every repair was a gamble, a risk I took hoping the car would keep running just a little longer. Despite the challenges, I wouldn't trade those early days for anything. That car was my first real taste of responsibility, independence, and the thrill of the open road. It was my teacher, my challenge, and my companion all rolled into one. It taught me about failure and perseverance, about the value of hard work and the joy of small victories. Looking back, I realized that the car was more than just a machine. It was a symbol of a young person's dreams, a battered but determined soul refusing to give up. It was a journey of growth, discovery, and the relentless pursuit of freedom. And even now, years later, when I hear the roar of an engine or see a gleaming car speeding by, I'm reminded of that first old, rusty vehicle, the one that taught me what it really means to drive. The more time I spent with that old car, the more it became clear that this wasn't just a phase or a hobby. It was a rite of passage, a test not only of my mechanical skills, but of my character. Every dent, every scratch, every stubborn stall was a story, a challenge I had to overcome. But it wasn't just about fixing a machine anymore. It was about learning how to navigate life's uncertainties through the lens of that rattling, temperamental car. One of the biggest surprises was how much the car taught me about patience. Patience wasn't something I ever thought I was good at. I was impatient by nature, always wanting things fast, quick results, instant gratification. But the car demanded a different kind of pace. There was no rushing repairs or forcing it to run when it clearly wasn't ready. If I tried to push it, it pushed back. The engine would sputter, the gears would grind, and I'd be left stranded, frustrated, and helpless. It forced me to slow down and respect the process. Learning the mechanics was a gradual journey. I remember the long nights lying on the cold concrete, under the car's belly, reading worn-out manuals by flashlight. The sense of accomplishment after replacing the timing belt or fixing a leaky radiator was profound, because it wasn't just about the repair, it was about conquering something that had seemed impossible hours before. And it wasn't just the mechanical lessons. That car taught me about resilience. There were times when I wanted to give up, when the repairs seemed endless, when money ran out, when the engine just wouldn't cooperate no matter what I did. But giving up meant losing a dream. So I kept going, learning from every failure. I learned how to borrow tools, negotiate with mechanics for cheaper parts, and find creative solutions when the budget was tight. The car became a metaphor for life. Sometimes you're on a smooth highway, everything running perfectly. Other times you're stuck in the mud, with smoke pouring from the hood and no clear way forward. But the key is to keep moving, to keep trying. The engine might stall, but it can start again. Along the way, the car took me on some unexpected adventures. One night, I decided to take a spontaneous road trip with a couple of friends. We piled into the cramped, rattling vehicle and headed out with no destination in mind, just the thrill of the open road. The car groaned as we climbed hills and rattled over rough back roads, but it held together. That night, under a sky full of stars, the car felt like more than just metal and rubber. It was a vessel of memories, laughter echoing inside, the warmth of friendship, the freedom of the unknown. We talked about dreams, fears, and futures, all while the car hummed steadily beneath us. For those few hours, it was perfect, but with every adventure came risks. On another occasion, the car broke down on a deserted stretch of highway, just as a thunderstorm rolled in. The rain poured down, drumming on the roof and soaking the seats. We sat inside, shivering and drenched, waiting for help. It was a harsh reminder that freedom always comes with responsibility, and sometimes danger. That incident stuck with me for a long time. It taught me to prepare, to respect the road and the machine, and to never take safety for granted. I started carrying a toolkit, jumper cables, and even a small first aid kit in the trunk. The car wasn't just a toy anymore. It was a lifeline. The social side of owning that car was unexpected too. It became a badge of honor, a symbol of independence that drew both admiration and curiosity. I started meeting people from all walks of life, fellow car enthusiasts, mechanics, neighbors who shared tips or swapped stories about their own vehicles. The car connected me to a community I never knew existed. Even the mistakes I made along the way became stories worth telling. Like the time I accidentally flooded the engine by turning the key too many times, or when I forgot to tighten the gas cap and wondered why the fuel gauge kept dropping. Those moments of failure were embarrassing, but taught me humility and a good sense of humor. Looking back, I realize how much owning that first car shaped who I am today. It wasn't just a vehicle. It was a classroom, a companion, and a symbol of everything I was striving for: independence, resilience, and the courage to face challenges head-on. That old car, battered and imperfect, gave me a gift far beyond transportation. It gave me the confidence to trust myself, the patience to learn, and the determination to never quit. Even now, whenever I see a car break down or struggle on the road, I remember those long nights under the hood and the lessons learned through grease and grit. That car was the start of everything. My first real taste of freedom and responsibility, a journey that changed me forever. By the time the months had turned into a year, that old car had become much more than a machine. It was part of my identity. Every scratch told a story. Every rattle and hum was a familiar friend. Driving it, fixing it, living with it had transformed me in ways I never expected. One of the biggest surprises was how owning that car changed the way I saw the world and myself. I used to think independence meant just having the freedom to go wherever I wanted, but that car taught me it was so much more. Independence was about responsibility, self-reliance, and a willingness to face problems head-on. The car had a way of forcing me out of my comfort zone. Whether it was waking up early on a freezing morning to jumpstart the engine, or staying late into the night to replace a broken belt, it demanded dedication. I had to learn to troubleshoot, to be resourceful, and to admit when I needed help, lessons that spilled over into every other part of my life. Driving that car wasn't always glamorous, but it was real. The worn-out seats and cracked dashboard didn't matter because behind the wheel, I felt alive. I remember countless nights driving through quiet streets, the radio playing softly, windows down, cold air rushing in. Those were moments of pure freedom. Moments when I felt in control of my destiny. Owning the car also deepened my relationships in unexpected ways. I wasn't just driving anymore. I was sharing experiences. Friends would pile in, sometimes just to hang out, sometimes to escape from the everyday. We'd drive to the beach, blast music, and laugh like there was no tomorrow. The car became a gathering place, a little world on wheels. There were also the tough conversations, the ones had in parking lots under flickering streetlights or on lonely roads at 2 a.m. When the world felt overwhelming, the car was a quiet sanctuary where I could think, reflect, and plan. It was where I grappled with fears about the future and celebrated small victories. That old car also sparked dreams. I started imagining trips to places I'd never been, roads stretching out like ribbons waiting to be explored. It became a symbol of possibility, a reminder that even if things were hard now, I had the power to change my story. But it wasn't all smooth driving. There were moments when the car's flaws seemed to mirror my own struggles. The sputters and stalls became metaphors for setbacks. Times when I felt stuck, uncertain, or overwhelmed. Those moments tested my resolve. Once, on a chilly autumn evening, the car broke down miles from home on a deserted country road. The engine sputtered and died, leaving me stranded with nothing but the cold night and the sound of rustling leaves. I sat there, heart pounding, wondering if I'd made a mistake buying such an unreliable vehicle. But as the minutes passed, I realized something: I wasn't alone. I had learned to face challenges, to keep calm under pressure, and to find solutions. I managed to flag down a passing driver who helped me get the engine running again. That night was a reminder that freedom comes with risks, but also with rewards. Owning that car was a balancing act, a dance between control and chaos. That balance shaped how I approached other parts of my life. I became more patient with setbacks, more willing to ask for help, and more determined to keep pushing forward. The car had taught me resilience, but also humility. Financially, the journey was tough. Repairs cost more than I'd anticipated, and I often had to choose between fixing the car or covering other essentials. It meant long hours working odd jobs, saving every penny, and sometimes going without. But those sacrifices made every mile driven feel earned and valuable. Over time, I became skilled at spotting problems before they turned into emergencies. A loose wire here, a squeaky brake there. I learned the importance of maintenance, not just quick fixes. That attention to detail saved me from costly breakdowns and gave me peace of mind on the road. Looking back, it's clear that the car was a teacher in disguise. It showed me how to handle pressure, manage resources, and value hard work. It shaped my identity, not just as a driver or mechanic, but as a person. And it wasn't just about me. That car connected me to a wider world. It opened doors to new friendships, shared stories, and unexpected kindnesses. People saw that I cared for my ride, that I was willing to put in the effort. It earned me respect. More than anything, that old car became a symbol of my journey from adolescence to adulthood. It was a milestone, proof that I could take on responsibility, solve problems, and chase my dreams, no matter how rusty or imperfect the path. Every time I see that model now, gleaming and polished, I smile. Because I know that the real value wasn't in the car itself, but in the journey it took me on. A journey of growth, challenge, and ultimately, freedom. As time passed, I realized that owning my first car wasn't just about the practicalities, the repairs, the driving lessons, or the late-night roadside rescues. It was about the profound impact it had on who I became and how I viewed the world. Eventually, the day came when that battered old car had run its last mile. No matter how much I patched it up, the engine gave out for good. The transmission failed, the frame rusted beyond repair, and the cost to fix it was more than I could afford. Saying goodbye was harder than I expected. I remember the moment I parked it for the last time in the driveway. The familiar creaks and rattles felt like the echoes of years gone by. It was more than just a car. It was a vessel of memories, triumphs, failures, laughter, and tears. It had been with me through the awkward, uncertain years of becoming an adult, teaching me lessons that no classroom ever could. Letting it go was bittersweet. Part of me mourned the loss of that rugged, imperfect companion. But another part was grateful for everything it had given me. Confidence, independence, resilience, and a sense of accomplishment that still fuels me today. That car was my first real taste of responsibility and freedom, a teacher that demanded my patience and persistence. It shaped my work ethic and my willingness to face challenges head on. It taught me that things don't always go smoothly, but with determination, even the rustiest engine can roar again. Looking back, I realize how much that experience shaped my dreams and ambitions. It gave me the courage to chase bigger goals, to take risks, and to believe in my ability to solve problems. The grit I learned from working on that car translated to other parts of my life, whether it was school, relationships, or work. The friendships forged over shared repairs and long drives became a foundation of support that I still lean on. The confidence gained from mastering a complex, unpredictable machine helped me approach life with a fearless attitude. And the memories, those countless moments of triumph and defeat, remind me that growth often comes from struggle. Sometimes, when I'm driving a newer, more reliable car, I catch myself thinking about that first old car, the way it felt beneath me, the sounds it made, the lessons it taught. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. And in its imperfections, it was beautiful. I like to think that every mile I drove, every problem I fixed, was a step toward becoming the person I am today. That car was my first true companion on the road to adulthood, and its legacy lives on in every journey I take. If there's one thing I hope anyone listening takes away from my story, it's this: sometimes it's not the things we own that define us, but the challenges we face and the lessons we learn along the way. That first car wasn't just a vehicle. It was a symbol of my growth, my perseverance, and my freedom. And for that, I will always be grateful.